The morning started off quiet, the kind of weekend calm that made me appreciate my home even more. I grabbed my coffee, pressed the button on my remote, and listened to the familiar hum of my garage door lifting. As sunlight spilled in, my black sedan gleamed from the corner where it had been parked the entire week. I had spent hours detailing it the day before, so the polished surface reflected the morning light like a mirror. I stepped forward, already planning my errands, when the peace shattered with the sharp sound of someone gasping. I turned my head slowly, and there she was, Karen. Our HOA president, the self-appointed guardian of all things petty, stood across the street, frozen in place. Her eyes locked onto my car as though she had stumbled across a crime scene. She clutched her phone, hand trembling in exaggerated shock, and I could see her lips mouthing words before sound followed. Her expression twisted into something between outrage and disbelief. She pointed at the car with such force that it seemed she might sprain her wrist. For a moment, I thought maybe she had mistaken my car for someone else's. But then her voice carried across the street. "That's my car. I just bought it yesterday," she shouted. I nearly choked on my coffee, blinking at her ridiculous claim. I had owned that sedan for months. Registration, insurance, and even the custom license plate were all in my name. But with Karen, logic never came first, drama always did. Karen didn't waste a second. The moment her declaration left her lips, she marched across the street like a storm front rolling in. Her sandals slapped against the pavement, each step louder than the last, until she stood in my driveway with her hands firmly on her hips. Her eyes narrowed, scanning my car as though she were an expert detective who had just uncovered stolen property. She jabbed her finger at the sedan again, her face red with fury. "That is my car," she barked. "I just signed the papers yesterday. What kind of thief do you think you are? Parking it right here in plain sight." I blinked at her, completely taken aback. My first instinct was to laugh. It was so absurd, but I knew laughing would only fuel her. Instead, I calmly explained, "Karen, this is my car. I bought it months ago. I have all the paperwork to prove it. You must be mistaken." But Karen wasn't the kind of person who admitted mistakes. She thrived on confrontation. Her voice grew louder, shriller, as she accused me of forging documents, of sneaking onto a dealership lot, and even of repainting the car to disguise it. The entire performance was so over the top, it almost seemed rehearsed. She was pacing now, clutching her phone like it was a microphone at center stage. And then, with a dramatic swipe of her finger, she declared she was calling the police. At that moment, I realized she wasn't just bluffing, she was really doing it. Karen pressed her phone tight against her ear, pacing in a circle at the end of my driveway like she was directing traffic. Her voice was loud enough for the entire block to hear, which I was sure was part of her plan. "Yes, officer. I've found my stolen car," she practically shrieked. "It's sitting right here, bold as brass, in my neighbor's garage. He just rolled it out like he owns it." I stood there, arms crossed, sipping my coffee, trying not to laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. But Karen wasn't done. She ramped up her story, tears suddenly appearing in her voice as she stammered. "I worked so hard for this car, and now he's trying to take it away from me. Please hurry. He might drive off any second." By now, neighbors were drawn to the commotion. Curtains twitched, blinds shifted, and one by one, people began stepping out onto their porches. Some leaned against fences, others pulled out their phones, clearly recording the spectacle. Karen, of course, loved the attention. She threw her arms dramatically toward my car, as if showcasing the evidence to an audience. I quietly pulled out my own phone and began recording her performance, making sure to capture every word of her false accusation. If she wanted to escalate this, fine. I'd be ready. As she continued to embellish her story to the dispatcher, I couldn't help but think, this was going to get very interesting when the police actually arrived. The sound of distant sirens drifted through the neighborhood, faint at first, then growing louder with each passing second. Karen's face lit up like she had just won a prize. She crossed her arms, standing tall at the edge of my driveway, her lips curling into a smug grin. "They're coming for you," she sneered, her tone dripping with satisfaction. She actually looked proud, as if she had single-handedly orchestrated some heroic takedown. I leaned casually against my car, swirling the last of my coffee in the mug, completely unbothered. The truth was on my side, and I knew the paperwork I kept neatly tucked in my glove box would end this nonsense in seconds. But Karen wasn't after truth, she was after humiliation. She wanted the whole neighborhood to see me hauled away in handcuffs, her ego inflated by what she believed was her victory. The sirens grew louder until 2 patrol cars rolled onto the street, lights flashing red and blue against the quiet suburban houses. Neighbors stepped fully outside now, gathering in small groups, whispering and pointing. Some even had their phones held high, eager to catch the drama for social media. Karen bolted toward the officers the moment they stepped out of their vehicles. She waved her arms frantically, pointing back at me like a witness identifying a dangerous criminal. "That's him. That's the thief. He stole my car and parked it right in his garage," she shouted. The officers exchanged a quick look before turning their attention to me. This was my moment to set the record straight. The officers approached with the calm professionalism of men who had seen it all before. One of them, a tall man with a clipboard in hand, asked me to step forward. "Sir, may I see your license, registration, and proof of insurance for the vehicle?" His tone wasn't hostile, but it carried the weight of procedure. I nodded, unfazed. "Of course, officer," I replied, pulling my wallet from my pocket and fishing out my license. Then I walked to the car, unlocked the door, and retrieved the registration and insurance papers from the glove box. I handed everything over neatly, even pointing out the purchase date on the bill of sale tucked inside. Karen hovered nearby like a vulture circling prey. "Don't believe his papers," she screeched. "He's a fraud. He probably printed those last night on his computer. My car was stolen from the dealership lot yesterday, and he's trying to cover his tracks." Her voice cracked with the force of her conviction. The second officer, who had been quietly running my license plate through the system, raised his eyebrows when the results came back. He gave a subtle nod to his partner, clearly signaling that my paperwork was legitimate. Meanwhile, Karen kept talking, piling accusation upon accusation, her words tumbling over each other like an avalanche. I stood silently, letting her dig her own hole. The officers didn't look convinced by her theatrics. If anything, their patience seemed to be wearing thin. It was only a matter of time before the truth unraveled her story. It didn't take long for the truth to surface. The officer holding my documents cleared his throat and spoke firmly. "Ma'am, this vehicle is registered to him. Purchased several months ago. VIN registration, insurance. All of it matches perfectly. There's no indication this car was stolen." His words cut through the air like a knife, but Karen wasn't ready to let go of her fantasy. She fumbled in her oversized purse and triumphantly pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. "I have proof too," she declared, thrusting it toward the officers. They took it, unfolded it, and exchanged an incredulous glance. It wasn't a bill of sale at all. It was a glossy dealership flyer advertising new arrivals. On it was a photo of a car that looked vaguely similar to mine. "I saw this exact car at the dealership yesterday," Karen said, her voice trembling with desperation. "I told them I wanted it, and then magically, today, it's in his garage. What more evidence do you need?" The officer handed the flyer back to her with a raised brow. "Ma'am, looking at a car on a lot doesn't make it yours. There's no transaction, no contract, no payment here." His tone was flat, almost amused. The crowd of neighbors erupted in quiet chuckles, and I could see several people recording, capturing Karen's unraveling moment by moment. Her face flushed crimson, but she doubled down, insisting there must be some grand conspiracy. I stayed silent, knowing every second made her look more unhinged. Karen's face twisted with rage as the officer's words sank in. Her arms flailed wildly, and she stomped her foot on the pavement like a child denied a toy. "This is corruption," she shrieked. "You're all covering for him because you don't want to admit you failed to protect this neighborhood." Her voice cracked, but she kept going, louder and more erratic. Neighbors who had been quietly watching from their porches now pulled out their phones in unison, recording every second of her meltdown. A few even laughed openly, their chuckles carrying across the street. Karen spun around, glaring at them, but their cameras stayed up, red recording lights blinking like silent witnesses to her humiliation. She circled my car, bending low to peer at the tires, then squinting at the windows as if she'd uncover some hidden flaw to prove her case. There. That scratch. That's not his, it's mine. I know my car when I see it, she howled. The officers exchanged weary glances, one stepping in front of her to block her path when she tried to tug at the door handle. Ma'am, that's enough, the officer said sharply. You've made a false report and disrupted this entire street. He warned her that filing false police claims was a serious offense, and if she didn't calm down, she could be arrested on the spot. For the first time, Karen hesitated. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The threat of handcuffs seemed to finally pierce her delusion, leaving her trembling in stunned silence. The officers didn't waste any more time. One of them pulled out his notepad and began writing the citation, his pen scratching against the paper while Karen sputtered and fumed beside him. This is outrageous. I'm the victim here, she cried, her voice breaking as the reality of the situation closed in. The officer remained calm, handing her the slip of paper. Ma'am, this is a citation for misuse of emergency services. Consider this a warning. Next time it won't just be a fine, you could be facing criminal charges. Karen snatched the paper from his hand, her face redder than I had ever seen it. Around us, the crowd of neighbors could barely contain their amusement. Some whispered, others laughed outright, and several recorded until Karen noticed. She turned on them screaming, "Stop filming. This is harassment." But by then, the damage was already done. Her meltdown was immortalized on half a dozen phones. I stayed where I was, leaning against my car, calm and collected. I didn't need to say a word. The scene had spoken for itself, and Karen had destroyed her own credibility in front of everyone. The officers gave me back my documents with a polite nod before returning to their vehicles. Karen stormed back across the street, stomping up her front steps and slamming her door so hard the windows rattled. From that day on, she never dared call 911 on me again. Still, I often caught her peeking from behind her curtains, glaring at my car like it had personally betrayed her.